What if I told you that the breakfast you eat every single morning is silently fueling inflammation inside your body right now? Japanese scientists have identified specific foods that block cancer cell growth, reverse type 2 diabetes, and eliminate chronic inflammation, and these foods have been sitting in Japanese kitchens for over 1,000 years. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you will know exactly what to eat every morning to protect your body starting tomorrow. Beat one open with a mirror moment. Let me ask you something personal. Think about what you ate this morning. Maybe it was cereal. Maybe it was toast with peanut butter. Maybe it was a granola bar you grabbed on the way out the door, or a fast food breakfast sandwich because there simply wasn't time for anything else. Now, I want you to ask yourself, when you made that choice, were you thinking about your health, or were you just trying to get through the morning? For most Americans, it's the second. What? And that is not your fault. You were never taught what your body actually needs in the morning. You were sold convenience. You were sold speed. You were sold the idea that as long as it says whole grain or low fat on the label, you're doing fine. But here's the truth, that the food industry does not want you to know what most Americans eat for breakfast is quietly, systematically, and scientifically destroying their health. Not all at once, not dramatically, slowly, silently, one morning at a time. Beat two, the inflammation epidemic. The word you need to understand is inflammation. Not the kind you see on the outside when you cut your finger and it turns red. I'm talking about chronic low-grade inflammation, the kind that burns inside your body every single day, that you cannot feel, that you cannot see, but that your doctor can measure in your blood. Chronic inflammation is now recognized by the medical community as the root cause of the most deadly diseases in America: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. The American Heart Association reports that cardiovascular disease driven largely by inflammation kills one American every 33 seconds. That is not a typo. Every 33 seconds. Over 38 million Americans are currently living with diabetes. Another 96 million are pre-diabetic, and most of them don't even know it yet. The CDC projects that by 2050, 1 in 3 American adults will have full diabetes if current trends continue. And cancer? The National Cancer Institute estimates that 1 in 3 Americans will receive a cancer diagnosis at some point in their lifetime. These are not small numbers. These are not distant statistics. These are your neighbors, your coworkers, your parents. Maybe you are already one of them. Beat three, why is this happening? So why is America so sick? We have the most advanced hospitals on earth. We spend more money on healthcare per person than any other country, over $12,000 per American per year. We have brilliant scientists, world-class research institutions, and more pharmaceutical drugs than any nation in history. And yet we are sicker than most of the developed world. The average American life expectancy is 76 years. In Japan, it is 84. That is not a small gap. That is 8 full years of life. 8 more years with your grandchildren. 8 more years of mornings, of travel, of everything that makes life worth living. What is Japan doing that we are not? The honest answer, and this is backed by decades of peer-reviewed research, is that it comes down to what they put on their plates, specifically what they eat in the morning. Japan has one of the lowest rates of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and many forms of cancer in the entire developed world. And that did not happen by accident. Beat four, the American morning routine is broken. The average American breakfast is built around 3 things: refined sugar, processed grains, and inflammatory seed oils. Your breakfast cereal, even the healthy looking ones, typically contains between 12 and 20 grams of added sugar per serving. Your store-bought bread is made from ultra-processed white flour that spikes your blood glucose within minutes of eating it. Your margarine, your vegetable oil, your packaged muffin, all of these are loaded with omega-6 fatty acids that directly trigger the inflammatory pathways in your body. A 2022 study published in the British Medical Journal found that ultra-processed foods now make up over 57% of the average American's daily calorie intake. In children, that number rises above 67%. Every morning, millions of Americans wake up, eat a breakfast designed by food corporations to be addictive and cheap to produce, and unknowingly pour fuel onto the fire of inflammation that is burning inside them. And then they wonder why they feel tired by 10 a.m., why they can't lose weight no matter what they try, why their doctor keeps telling them their blood sugar is borderline. Why do they feel foggy, sluggish, and older than their age? This is not a willpower problem. This is not a laziness problem. This is an information problem. Nobody told you the truth about what your body needs because the people making money from your breakfast don't want you to know. Beat 5, the pivot hope is coming. But here is where everything changes. Because Japanese researchers and scientists at institutions like Harvard, MIT, and the National Institutes of Health have been studying the Japanese diet for decades. and they have identified specific compounds and specific foods that do something remarkable inside the human body. They switch off inflammatory pathways, they starve cancer cells of their blood supply, they restore insulin sensitivity, they repair the gut lining that controls your entire immune system. These are not miracle claims. These are published, peer-reviewed, reproducible scientific findings. And the foods that contain these compounds are not exotic, expensive, or hard to find. Some of them you can order on Amazon today and have them on your kitchen table by tomorrow morning. The question is, are you ready to find out what they are? Because in the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what Japanese people eat every single morning and the science that explains why it is keeping them alive, healthy, and disease-free for decades longer than most Americans. Let's get into it. Transition from problem into solution now that you understand what is happening inside your body and why the standard American breakfast is making it worse. Let me show you what the science actually says you should be eating instead. I want to be very clear about something before we begin. Everything I am about to share with you is backed by published, peer-reviewed scientific research. I am not selling you a supplement. I am not promoting a diet program. I am giving you information, the same information that Japanese families have lived by for over 1,000 years, and that modern science is now confirming in laboratories around the world. There are three specific, accessible, affordable foods that Japanese people eat regularly, often, every single morning. And each one targets a different root cause of the chronic diseases that are devastating American health right now. Let's go through them one by one. Food 01, matcha green tea, the cancer fighter, what it is. Matcha is not the same as regular green tea. Regular green tea is steeped in water and then discarded. Matcha is the whole leaf stone ground into a fine powder and dissolved completely into water. That means when you drink matcha, you are consuming the entire leaf, not just a weak extract of it. The concentration of active compounds is dramatically higher. The science, the key compound in matcha is called EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. This is one of the most studied anti-cancer molecules in nutritional science today. Research from Harvard Medical School, the University of Colorado, and multiple Japanese institutions has shown that EGCG can inhibit a process called angiogenesis, the ability of tumors to grow new blood vessels to feed themselves. Without a blood supply, a tumor cannot grow beyond 1 to 2 millimeters. EGCG essentially cuts off the tumor's food supply at the source. This is the same mechanism that anti-cancer drugs worth billions of dollars are trying to replicate pharmaceutically. But EGCG does not stop at cancer. A 2023 clinical study published in the journal Nutrients found that daily matcha consumption significantly reduced fasting blood glucose levels and improved insulin sensitivity in adults with prediabetes. In other words, matcha helps your body use sugar properly, which is the core problem in type 2 diabetes. Matcha also contains L-theanine, an amino acid that promotes calm, focused mental alertness without the jittery crash you get from coffee. Japanese monks drank matcha before long meditation sessions for exactly this reason: sustained clean energy and mental clarity. How to use it: 1 cup every morning. Whisk 1 teaspoon of ceremonial grade matcha powder into 6 ounces of hot water not boiling, around 175 degrees Fahrenheit. You can add a splash of oat milk or almond milk if needed. Do not add sugar. The bitter, earthy flavor is where the medicine lives. Within 2 weeks, most people report noticeably more stable energy throughout the day. Food 02 Natto, the longevity superfood America, ignores what it is. Natto is fermented soybeans, and it is the single most consumed breakfast food in Eastern Japan. It has a strong smell, a sticky texture, and a flavor that takes some getting used to. Most Americans who try it for the first time are not impressed. But the Japanese people who eat it every morning are statistically among the healthiest and longest living humans on the planet. That is not a coincidence. The science natto contains 2 compounds that are almost impossible to get from any other food, sourced in meaningful quantities. The first is nattokinase, a powerful enzyme produced during the fermentation process. Nattokinase has been shown in multiple clinical trials to dissolve fibrin, the protein that forms dangerous blood clots. A 2022 study in the journal Scientific Reports confirmed that nattokinase supplementation significantly reduced arterial stiffness and blood clot risk in healthy adults over just 8 weeks. Blood clots are responsible for the majority of heart attacks and strokes. Nattokinase works through the same biological pathway as some prescription blood thinners, but as a food, not a drug, with no known serious side effects in healthy individuals. The second compound is vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 form, which is the most bioavailable version known to science. Natto contains more K2 per serving than any other food on Earth. And K2 does something remarkable. It acts as a biological traffic controller for calcium in your body. Most Americans take calcium supplements hoping to build stronger bones, but without K2, calcium does not go to your bones. It circulates in your bloodstream and deposits into your arterial walls, hardening them, reducing blood flow, and increasing your risk of a heart attack. K2 activates proteins that physically direct calcium away from your arteries and into your bone tissue where it belongs. It is the missing link between calcium and actual bone health that most American doctors never mention. How to use it: eat natto 3 times per week. One small pack, typically 50 grams, is all you need. Serve it over warm rice, mix it into a bowl with a raw egg yolk and a drizzle of soy sauce, the traditional Japanese way. Or spread it on whole grain toast if you prefer a Western format. You can find natto in most Asian grocery stores and increasingly on Amazon. Store it in the freezer and thaw overnight in the refrigerator before eating. Food 03 Miso Soup, the gut armor. What it is: miso is a paste made from fermented soybeans, salt, and a mold culture called koji. It has been a cornerstone of the Japanese diet for over 2,500 years. In Japan, miso soup is not a side dish, it is a morning ritual, eaten at breakfast by millions of families every single day alongside rice and natto. It is warm, deeply savory, and takes less than 5 minutes to prepare. The science, the fermentation process, transforms miso into a living food dense with probiotic bacteria that colonize and repair your gut microbiome. And your gut is not just a digestion system. Scientists now understand that 70 to 85% of your entire immune response originates in the gut. The trillions of bacteria living in your intestinal lining communicate directly with your immune cells, regulating inflammation throughout your entire body. A landmark 2021 study from Stanford University found that a diet high in fermented foods, including miso, significantly increased microbiome diversity and measurably reduced 19 key inflammatory markers in the blood within just 10 weeks. Miso also contains isoflavones, plant compounds that have been shown to reduce the risk of hormone-sensitive cancers, including breast and prostate cancer. A large-scale Japanese cohort study that followed over 40,000 women for more than a decade found that those who consumed miso soup daily had a significantly lower risk of breast cancer compared to those who rarely consumed it. Additionally, miso contains melanoidins, brown pigment compounds formed during fermentation that act as powerful antioxidants, neutralizing the free radicals that accelerate cellular aging and DNA damage. How to use it: 1 bowl every morning. Heat 2 cups of water until just below boiling. Never boil miso directly, as heat above 115 degrees Fahrenheit destroys the live probiotic cultures. Dissolve 1 tablespoon of white or yellow miso paste into the water. Add cubed soft tofu, a small handful of dried wakame seaweed, and sliced green onions. Total preparation time 4 minutes. This single bowl delivers probiotics, isoflavones, antioxidants, and plant protein, all before 8 a.m. Beat 2 close the solution with Power 3 foods: matcha, natto, and miso. Each one targeting a different pathway: cancer, cardiovascular disease, and immune function. Each one backed by serious, published science. Each one consumed daily by the healthiest population on Earth. You do not have to overhaul your entire life. You do not need to follow a complicated meal plan or count a single calorie. You simply need to add these 3 foods to your mornings consistently, week after week, and let the biology do what it was designed to do. Your body already knows how to heal. It just needs the right raw materials. And that is exactly what these foods provide. Beat 1 set up the surprise. Before I let you go, I promised you a bonus. And this one is important. In fact, for many of you watching right now, this bonus tip may be more impactful than anything else I have shared in this entire video. Because here's the thing about the 3 foods we just covered: matcha, natto, and miso. They are powerful on their own. The science is clear. But Japanese people do not eat those foods in isolation. There is an invisible nutritional layer underneath the Japanese diet that Western researchers are only beginning to understand. And without this layer, you are leaving a significant amount of the health benefit on the table. I am talking about 2 specific nutrients that work together as a biological team: vitamin D3 and vitamin K2. You may have heard of both of them separately. But what most Americans, and frankly, most American doctors, do not know is that these 2 nutrients must be taken together to work properly. One without the other is not just incomplete. In some cases, one without the other can actually cause harm. Let me explain exactly why. Beat 2, the vitamin D3 crisis in America. Start with vitamin D3. This is the form of vitamin D that your skin produces when it is exposed to direct sunlight. It is one of the most critical nutrients in the human body, not just for bone health, but for immune function, mood regulation, cardiovascular protection, and cancer prevention. Here's the crisis. The vast majority of Americans are deficient in it. According to the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, over 41% of American adults are clinically deficient in vitamin D. Among African Americans, that number rises to over 82%. Among Hispanic Americans, it is over 69%. These are not fringe statistics, they represent tens of millions of people walking around with a critical nutritional gap that is directly affecting their health every single day. Why are so many Americans deficient? Several reasons. Most Americans spend the majority of their day indoors. When they do go outside, they apply sunscreen, which blocks the UVB rays that trigger vitamin D synthesis in the skin. The foods that naturally contain vitamin D3, fatty, fish, egg yolks, organ meats are eaten infrequently by most Americans, and the fortified vitamin D added to milk and cereals is typically vitamin D2, the plant-based form, which is significantly less potent and bioavailable than D3. What does vitamin D3 deficiency actually do to your body? The research is sobering. Low vitamin D levels are associated with a 64% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. They are associated with significantly elevated risk of cardiovascular disease. They are linked to higher rates of depression, cognitive decline, and autoimmune conditions. And multiple large-scale studies have found that people with low vitamin D levels have substantially higher rates of several cancers, including colorectal, breast, and prostate cancer. In Japan, people receive more vitamin D naturally through their diet, particularly through fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, which are consumed regularly. This is one of the silent reasons Japanese people have lower rates of the diseases that are overwhelming American healthcare. Tip 01, vitamin D3, the sunshine nutrient. You are not getting the science. Vitamin D3 functions less like a vitamin and more like a hormone. Once activated in the body, it interacts with receptors in virtually every cell, regulating over 200 different genes involved in immune defense, inflammation control, and cellular repair. A 2019 meta-analysis published in the British Medical Journal analyzed data from over 11,000 participants and found that vitamin D3 supplementation significantly reduced the risk of acute respiratory infections, the same immune pathways involved in fighting viral illness and cancer. Specifically regarding cancer, researchers at the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine found that people with higher blood levels of vitamin D had a 67% lower risk of cancer compared to those with deficient levels. That is not a small effect. That is a transformative difference in cancer risk from a single nutrient. Dr. Michael Hollick of Boston University Medical School, one of the world's leading vitamin D researchers, has stated that correcting vitamin D deficiency in the American population could prevent hundreds of thousands of deaths per year from cancer and cardiovascular disease alone. How to use it? Most functional medicine physicians now recommend between 2,000 and 5,000 IU of vitamin D3 per day for adults, taken with a meal that contains healthy fat, since D3 is fat soluble and absorbs best alongside dietary fat. Avocado, olive oil, nuts, or fatty fish all work perfectly. Get your blood levels tested before you start. Ask your doctor for a 25-hydroxyvitamin D test. Optimal levels are generally considered to be between 40 and 60 nanograms per milliliter. Most deficient Americans are sitting at half that or lower. Tip 02, vitamin K2, the missing traffic controller. Why K2 changes everything now. Here's where the story gets genuinely surprising and where most American doctors are decades behind the science. When you take vitamin D3, your body dramatically increases its absorption of calcium from the food you eat. More calcium enters your bloodstream. That sounds like a good thing. After all, calcium builds strong bones, right? But here is the problem. If you do not have enough vitamin K2 in your system, that extra calcium has no direction. It circulates in your blood and over time deposits into your arterial walls, hardening them, reducing their elasticity. Narrowing the passages through which your blood flows, this process is called arterial calcification, and it is one of the primary drivers of heart attack and stroke in America. A landmark study published in the Journal of Nutrition found that high vitamin K2 intake was associated with a 57% reduction in the risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. Not a 5% reduction, not a 10% reduction. 57% from a single nutrient that most Americans have never even heard of. Vitamin K2 activates two critical proteins in the body. The first is called osteocalcine, a protein produced in your bones that, when activated by K2, pulls calcium out of the bloodstream and locks it into bone tissue. The second is called matrix GLA protein, a protein found in your arterial walls that, when activated by K2, actively removes calcium deposits from the arteries and prevents new ones from forming. In other words, K2 is the biological traffic controller that tells calcium exactly where to go. Bones, yes. Arteries, absolutely not. Without K2, calcium supplementation and even the calcium boosting effect of vitamin D3 can inadvertently accelerate arterial hardening rather than prevent it. This is why in Japan, where natto consumption is highest, rates of osteoporosis and cardiovascular calcification are dramatically lower than in Western countries. Japanese people eating natto regularly are receiving the highest natural dietary dose of K2MK7 available from any food on earth. Their bones are dense, their arteries stay flexible, their hearts keep beating well into their 80s and 90s. How to use it: if you are already eating natto 3 times a week, as I described earlier, you are getting a meaningful dose of K2 from food. But if natto is not yet part of your routine, or if you want to ensure consistent, optimal levels, look for a vitamin K2 supplement in the MK7 form specifically. The MK7 form stays active in your body for 72 hours, compared to just a few hours for the MK4 form. A dose of 100 to 200 micrograms of K2 MK7 per day, taken alongside your D3 and a meal with healthy fat, is what most research now supports. Beat 3, bring it all together. So let me give you the complete picture of what the Japanese morning routine actually looks like when you combine everything we have discussed today. A cup of matcha delivering EGCG to suppress cancer cell growth and stabilize blood sugar. A serving of natto delivering nattokinase to protect your cardiovascular system and K2 to direct calcium where it belongs. A bowl of miso soup delivering probiotics to fortify your gut and regulate your immune system. And alongside all of that, vitamin D3 and K2 as a nutritional foundation that makes every other health habit you have work more effectively. This is not a complicated protocol. It does not require a nutritionist. It does not require an expensive gym membership or a complete lifestyle overhaul. It requires a trip to an Asian grocery store, a simple supplement order, and the decision to spend 5 extra minutes on your morning routine. The average Japanese person spends more time preparing and eating breakfast than the average American spends on their entire morning health routine. That investment of time and intention is reflected directly in their health outcomes, and it can be reflected in yours too. Your body is not broken. It is not failing you. It is simply waiting for the right information, the right raw materials to do what it was designed to do. And now you have that information. The question is simply this: what are you going to do with it starting tomorrow morning? If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button right now. It helps this information reach more people who need it. And if you want more science-backed Japanese health secrets that the mainstream media ignores, subscribe and hit the bell. Every week I bring you research that could genuinely change your health. Comment below. Which of these 3 foods are you going to try first? I read every single comment, and next week I'm revealing the one Japanese anti-aging supplement backed by Harvard research that reverses cellular aging. Most Americans have never heard of it. You do not want to miss that one.